with the Dolphins, though. And this goes back in time. Tua Tagovailoa was on Dan Le Batard's podcast the other day. And Le Batard asked him about his former head coach, Brian Flores. And the quarterback in Miami did not mince words when speaking of the relationship and the impact it had on Tua at the time.
If you woke up every morning and I told you you suck at what you did, that you don't belong doing what you do, that you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here, that you haven't earned this right, and then you have somebody else come in and tell you, dude, you are the best fit for this. Like, you are accurate, you are the best whatever, you are this, you are that. Like, how would it make you feel listening to one or the other? You see what I'm saying? And then you hear it, regardless of what it is, the good or the bad, and you hear it more and more, you start to actually believe that. I don't care who you are. You could be the president of the United States. You have a terrible person that's telling you things that you don't want to hear, or that you probably shouldn't be hearing. You're going to start to believe that about yourself. And so that's sort of like what ended up happening. And it was, I mean, it's basically been, 2 years of training that out of not just me, but, a couple of the guys as well that have been here since my rookie year.
Wow.
They say it takes 2 weeks to build a new habit. Well, Tua is claiming that for 2 years he was told by Brian Flores when in his tenure in coaching in Miami that he was not the quarterback that he wanted to do that job for the Miami Dolphins at the time. Akbar, hearing that, knowing, Brian Flores, the type of coach he is, knowing Tua, what he's become, your thoughts?
Well, first off, shout out to Tua for just even having the emotional awareness to be able to express himself in this way. The players, the generation, it's a lot different. I think Brian Flores comes from a different era, a different generation. He's a strong-willed coach. I don't think this is a knock on Brian Flores, by the way, because I think the same approach could be highly effective for a player like a Kobe Bryant, the late Kobe Bryant, guys who respond to that. I think the younger generation, they respond to a different type of coaching, and it's up to the coach to then make that adjustment. Every player is so different in how they respond to criticism, how they respond to instructions. And so I think what we're hearing here from Tua is the fact that Tua was saying, look, I was sensitive to that type of, and it destroyed my confidence. And you could see it in the numbers. His numbers with Flores was dramatically different than what he has with Coach McDaniel. Excuse me. So I say that because when I think about a player's psyche, a lot of coaches fall into this trap is like, it's just one way. You're dealing with 53 guys. And not that you're going to have to go through and try to manage 53 different emotions, but especially a key position like a quarterback, you do have to be a little bit more aware on the type of player you're dealing with. And so he just seems to really have kind of broke under that. But I like that Mike McDaniel, I would be interested to see what it is that Mike McDaniel's doing differently than that of Coach Flores. Mm-hmm. Is it being soft-spoken? Is it just always telling him you're great, you're great, you're great, and never criticizing him? What is that Coach McDaniel's doing?
It's a really powerful quote. It's also really accusatory. I would love to hear Brian Flores' response, which we won't. Yeah. I mean, he's not a head coach right now. He's in Minnesota, and he's just not going to talk on that. But it's also a little bit surprising. I mean, it's not like Tua's always just had Mike McDaniels. Like, he played under Saban, who's like the oldest of old school and like doesn't suffer fools if he doesn't have to. But I think it's like coaching and parenting. It's you got to know your player, what they need. It's not something for everybody. It's like, I don't believe this thing that this generation's players need coddling or they're soft. I don't think that at all. I think that's way too broad of a stroke. I see it in the NFL. I see it at my 10-year-old's baseball games. They coach them hard sometimes. Like this, if anybody doesn't have kids or is under this illusion that everyone's soft now and everyone needs to just be coddled constantly, it's not true. Sometimes they get yelled at hard. And I've seen them from other teams, from other towns, everywhere. I just think, like, Mike McDaniel saw Tua and realized what he needed, that this was a guy who was really down in confidence, who didn't believe in himself. On the side of that, he's dealing with the injury issues he was, and I'm just going to build him up, and I'm going to make him feel like a superstar. I think it also happens a lot in what we do. We've all worked with people who make you feel like you're some media superstar or something, and people who are like, why did you do that in that segment? You don't belong there. I think it's a case-to-case basis. I think there's a lot of players that come in, even rookies, who are like, they need their ribs busted right now by their coach. Like, you got to do this better. I mean, I grew up watching John Gruden just scream at guys.
Yep.
I mean, you can still pull up video of Chris Sims coming to the league, and Gruden is wearing him out. Chris Sims, huge college guy, son of a famous quarterback. He might have needed to be brought down like that. Bill Parcells, same thing. But I still think there's a place for that. I think there's a place for what Flores did. I don't think it's obsolete. I don't think that Flores is some sort of villain for doing that.
No.
I think he might have picked the wrong target. Brian Flores gave the Dolphins back-to-back winning seasons for the first time in like about 20 years. Like, he did not fall on his face there. It wasn't a match with Tua, and it sounds like Mike McDaniel is.
There is. I was just going to say there is a shift though in generations. I've seen that even when I came in, to the prior generation. Just generations do change, and changes doesn't necessarily mean it's bad.
Mm-hmm. To speak to like the match, I think between Brian Flores and Tua, I covered all of Tua's college games at Alabama in my 4 years on the SEC. 2 of which were Alabama's prime years with Tua, and I know there's a lot of prime years, but it was Tua's 2 years starting there. Nick Saban does not mince words when it comes to Nick Saban is one of the hardest coaches to watch at practice. But he had a soft spot for Tua. I think Nick Saban has the awareness that, and there's more than 53 guys on the college rosters at times. So Nick Saban looks at 100-plus guys, and maybe he addresses position groups differently. But for some reason in his time in Tua, he spoke not as intensely with other people. There was a maturation there. There was a level of intelligence there. The way that Coach Saban communicated with Tua in his time at college does not sound like by the way of how Brian Flores went. That being said, Tua Tagovailoa has a father that is very present in his football journey, because we also know Taulia Tagovailoa, who's going through Maryland now. The Tagovailoa patriarch is a very intense individual in these young men's lives, and they speak on this a lot. So Tua is well versed in the wide range of criticism, emotional intensity, and the fact that this did not line up with Brian Flores, to me, all I hear is, wow, that was really to a 10 in terms of Tua's scale. And I'm not faulting Brian Flores, even though he is generationally the same age-ish as Mike McDaniel. He comes from a different tree. And I think in terms of that might work defensively, it doesn't work for a cerebral young man, talented as Tua is. That clearly was not the match. And I, too, appreciate Tua for coming out and saying it, because I think it allows other players to say, this doesn't work for me. And frankly, hopefully it opens the eyes to other coaches. But you're right to touch on all the coaches that Tua has had. And the fact that Mike McDaniel, I remember saying that he got there and he just wanted to give Tua a big hug. Remember that? It was early on he said that about him. Yeah.
And we've heard stories for years that, Belichick would annihilate Brady. And doing it in front of the team. Brady, what was this throw? And this is Brady, MVP, Super Bowl winner, deep in his career, who would just annihilate him. There's something that coaches do, too, to the team and to the quarterback to bring them down, especially maybe after they have some success or they get paid. It sounds to me like Brian Flores just had it in him that I'm going to toughen this Tua up by whatever means possible, and it sounds like it was a horrible match. And Mike McDaniel's perfect for him.
You know what? It took me back to Coach Morton, Chad Morton, with the young running back on Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
I forget the young kid's name, but he's just on him. He's on top of him. And then he gives him some love. He uses the sandwich effect. He's tough on him. Then he comes in, gives him some love, and then he's tough on him at the bottom of it as well. So it just really just knowing who you are. And you see, it looks like he's responding very well in that Hard Knocks.